Good morning, good morning. Happy Saturday, ladies and gentlemen. This is Ben with the Four Corner Society. Again, appreciate you guys coming in and getting to look at this tier list. As I mentioned in the Aereo one, we are really excited for the Baldur's Gate 3 drop coming. I believe when I looked it up, it was August like 31st or something like that. So Baldur's Gate 3 was created by Lorien Studios. So what we're doing in anticipation of that is playing Divinity Original Sin 1, Divinity Original Sin 2, and then when it drops, we'll be doing a lot of information on Divinity or Baldur's Gate 3. It should basically be Divinity, Original Sin 3 at this point. But super into D&D, all that kind of stuff. And so last video we did, and I'll link it in the somewhere. I'm figuring out how to edit and everything, so it will be linked somewhere where you guys can go ahead and check out the Aereo Thurge. The kind of basis for this is social interactions, combat interactions in a generic sense. Like majority of the time, which spell is going to do the most damage or have the most impact in a majority scale. If you've ever played any of the Divinity games, you will understand that there is a ton of replayability. There's a ton of viability with all kinds of builds. You can literally play it however you want. So without further ado, this video we're going to be doing the Pyrokinetic mage, the generic mage, and I'm going to be going through what is the best spells for this particular class. And then at the end of the video, I'm going to be going over what I would use as your typical spell like usage, because in this game you have once you get to level 5 in your pyrokinetic ability, you get 6 novice spells, 4 adept spells, and 2 master spells. So we'll go over what I would suggest putting into your spell arsenal. So without further ado, we're actually going to go ahead and start with the Avatar of Fire. And I'll include everything up on the screen as I'm talking about it, but I'll just read briefly what it does. Make a target immune to burning. Its melee attackers may catch on fire. So this is this skill right here. I personally, from my interactions with the game, I actually find a lot of characters or encounters that you come across having a lot of fire resistance. And just in general, because of that, I don't necessarily see the pyrokinetic as super game breaking or groundbreaking. So this particular spell, you get 6 novice spells. I probably would not use this spell ever. It has a nice um, like ability with it where you can take burning off of somebody, but I don't really see the use of it super great. So I'm actually just going to put it into the D tier. Next up, we have the Burn My Eyes, which is this spell here. What it does, target gains a temporary perception bonus and cures Blinded. So Blinded, in my opinion, is soft CC. You can only attack targets who are near you. If you use Blinded on an AI, they essentially become CC'd for however long they're blinded because they don't do anything. They won't attack. They typically won't move. It's kind of like I would say it's a little bug in their programming. So it turns out to be hard CC, but when it's your character, you just have to get right up close and personal with them. So the fact that you're able to cure the blinding is kind of a big deal. I would actually put this spell in B tier because of the also added social component where you can give a temporary perception bonus, which allows your character to perceive or see their surroundings as you're exploring the world. So maybe you can come across more loot as you're going because you're able to like find holes in the ground that need to be dug up and things like that. So I would put this in the B tier. I don't find myself using it in combat often. Because if my character is, the way that combat works is essentially you want to be on the offensive. So I don't really or have not come across a lot of people blinding my characters. But in the social aspect, I have seen myself use this to try to find certain areas of interest and get more loot that way. So I would put this in the B tier. Burning Touch is the next spell. This is right here. Burning Touch, I would include this. It does a decent amount of damage, and what it says is set fire to a nearby target dealing XY damage. I think it's good. I don't think it's game breaking. I think if a melee encounter, AI gets close to you, it's basically a 100% chance of setting them burning. And it does a decent amount of damage. So it's something that you can definitely add in, and I would include it as like a must, especially since it's just the novice skill. It's definitely nice. going into the Firefly ability, Firefly is, in my opinion, actually really strong. And it's strong. I'll put it actually in S tier, surprisingly enough. It creates a fire surface. So the way it does is when you use the spell, it originates from you and you create a line of fire, and then you kind of get to pick the path of the fire to create that specific surface. So what I've actually found uses of this is I call it soft CC. It doesn't actually crowd control anybody, but the way the AI works is it kind of forces them to go down a path that they don't want to go, and they spend their action points moving away from the fire um, rather than just kind of run through it. So it's a form of soft CC, but it's also nice to be able to create like a giant path of fire for a bunch of melee characters, and they have to run through that fire to get to your party. So I actually find this extremely useful, especially in the playthrough I'm doing. So I would put this in the S tier. Next up, we have the Flare. Flare cast a magical heat that does XY fire damage. It doesn't have a 100% chance to set like put people on fire or burning, so I'll put it in the A tier. But it's one of your quintessential abilities to do a ton of damage early on, so I definitely enjoy that. It does a fair amount of damage, but as I was mentioning, why I don't think Pyrokinetic is super game breaking is because there's a lot of enemies that like get healed from fire that you'll go through, and I'm like, that sucks. But there's also situations where, ice is prevalent. There's a certain part of the campaign where ice is super prevalent and fire mage turns out to be, game breaking. So I'll put the flare skill here in the A tier. Next up, we have the self-immolation. This is this skill right here, and create a fire service around you with you in the middle. Grants everyone around you 25% resistance 25% fire resistance for 2 turns, and removes frozen and stunned. So I actually think this skill is I would put the skill in the B tier with the ability to remove frozen and stun if that comes into play. I think that's pretty useful if you get stunned. Although, if you're in combat and your characters are getting stunned and frozen and this and that, then I think you're playing combat wrong because you want to be the one doing that. But there are scenarios where initiative is basically automatically given to your the encounter that you're facing or the combat scenario that you're facing. So this is a nice ability to go ahead and kind of remove those things. The drawback, obviously, is that you basically burn everything around you, including yourself. But you do get that 25% fire resistance. But I think the reason why I'm putting it in B tier is because you come across a lot of just fighter characters that you fight. So having them have to run to fire to get to attack you up close, I think is actually pretty useful. If it didn't have, if it didn't set you on fire or your party members on fire, I would definitely include this in the A tier. But for now, it'll just be in the B tier. Last up for the novice skills, we have the wildfire. So wildfire is haste a target. And let me just kind of tell you what haste is. Hasten boosts the target's maximum action points by 3, starting action points by 3, and recovering action points by 2. So it is extremely useful. I would put this in the S tier. It is super viable to go ahead and put this on one of your, knight characters or your two-handed swordsman or whoever needs to be doing the most actions, being able to move as quickly as possible. This is a great spell to do that on. It's so great. Provides a ton of utility, and it just allows your main damage character or your main character to dish out more punishment overall. That's the novice spells. So right here, we're looking pretty good there. We're going to go into the adept spells. Starting off first with the adept will be the explode ability. And what it does is it deals XY fire damage to yourself and to those within 6 meters around you. I know that there's tons of ways to play this game. I could see uses in this game if you wanted to have this on a melee fighter who battering rams in and then explodes around him and deals a ton of damage, and it's kind of like a suicide bomber in a sense. However, in the like majority of the time, I don't see this as being extremely useful, so I'm putting it in the D tier. It doesn't have a lot of uses other than the niche party compositions that you kind of don't normally see. Fire Absorption Shield. This is this spell right here. Enchant self or ally with a fire shield. A fire shield absorbs fire damage until it breaks. There's another thing, it's immune to the burning status, but you also lower your water resistance by 25. So with the amount of fire that you encounter in the game and kind of enemies that you face, I would put this in the C tier. I tend to find myself not typically using this because the whole point of combat is to crowd control your opponent or CC or a soft CC your opponent. So this is kind of like being on the reverse side of that. So I don't see myself typically using this spell, but I see it has its uses, and it also has some social components as well. If you need to cross a fiery surface, you can go ahead put this on, and it will absorb some of that fire damage for you. So I see it in there. That's why I'm putting it in the C tier. Next up, you have the Fireball. The Fireball is the bread and butter, I would say, of the class. It's very, iconic. It's your typical fire mage spell, Fireball. Cast an explosive ball of fire that does XY fire damage to anything within 3 meters of impact. I actually find this spell extremely useful. It is able to set burning status on clumped up enemies. You can, cheese your way to encounters by sneaking and then casting Fireball first to get as many people as you can. I find it extremely useful in that aspect. So Fireball, and it does a ton of damage. So definitely S tier for the Pyrokinetic Mage. Want to include that majority of the time. Next up, we have the Purifying Fire right here. So Purifying Fire removes burning, frozen, stun, charm, healing, and shields. This is a great spell. I'm actually going to put it in the A tier because if you've ever gone into an encounter and say your party is, it's kind of like your get out of jail free card, or if you've bursted a guy and he's super close to dying, but it's going to go into their next turn, you can go ahead and after the enemy does your turn, just remove all the healing that was done on that specific character. I find it extremely useful. It's also great with removing charm. Charm is a super demoralizing effect if it happens on one of your characters. You basically just have to load and restart the encounter when charm happens. It makes it super hard to actually fight that encounter because you lose a whole turn, a whole person of combat, and they're actually attacking you. So being able to remove charm is kind of a big deal. So I'll actually put this in the A tier. I find its uses being extremely valuable. Next up, we have the Smoke Screen. Smoke Screen, I would put this in the B tier. It is another form of soft CC. It creates a black cloud of smoke, so you can it's like blinding somebody without actually blinding somebody. So if you're encountering a bunch of, say, ranged characters, you can pop Smoke Screen and they won't be able to see you. So they have to run through the smoke to be able to see you, which is actually pretty useful. Or if you wanted to drop it on your own party and create a smoke screen, I believe they would not be able to see you at that point. So I would just put this in B tier. In my current playthrough, I have never used this spell because I can naturally create smoke screens with my Hydrosophist party member, along with my Pyrokinetic, all that stuff. So I would just put this in the B tier. Actually, I would drop it in the C tier. It's not necessarily my favorite spell. Last up, we have the Summon Fire Elemental. So my specific build is actually a full mage party with elementals. I'm going with just an elemental build. So I'm kind of biased to this. It is very nice being able to summon a creature and have that creature be able to tank for you majority of the time. It's also nice because this comes with flare, and it also comes with I believe it's emulation. It's this specific spell that this one gets, so it just puts fire on the ground and all that stuff. I find that really useful. It's not insanely overpowered. It doesn't do an insane amount of damage. What it does do is it creates a pseudo tank for you, so your mage is not getting attacked. And I do find that impactful. So I'll put that one in the B tier. Last up, guys, we're going through the master spells. So the master spells, we'll start off with Immolation right here. instantly set a target on fire, dealing XY fire damage, and you set the burning status for 3 turns, or 100% chance to set burning status for 3 turns. I would actually put this one in the. I'm debating on B or A because as a master tier spell, it's single target damage, and it really does not do that much damage. And it should do a lot more damage. Fireball does more damage because it attacks more people. This one, I would put it in the B tier. If I'm being honest with myself, I put it in the B tier. It has, 6 action point costs, but it's because it's single target, it's not super game breaking, and it needs to be higher damage for, it to go any higher. Next up, we have the Infectious Flame, which is right here. Infectious Flame. Cast a magical flame that forks on impact and does XY fire damage to each target. So this is an S tier spell. The fact that you're able to burn multiple targets and just dish out a ton of damage as much as possible is exactly why the Pyrokinetic Mage exists. So being able to do that is extremely useful, and burning is great as well because anytime the enemy character starts their turn, it's going to go ahead and give them burning damage. So you can get them to a sliver of health. It's kind of like Pokemon. You get them to a sliver of health and you throw the Pokeball. It's kind of the same thing where you get them to burning and it's like they're burning right now. Well, you can pass over them because the next turn they start, they're going to die from burning. So that's pretty useful there. Last up is the Meteor Shower ability. Meteor Shower is S tier as well. 30 fireballs come crashing down from the sky. Each does XY fire damage to entities within a 3-meter range from impact. This is like, let's go ahead and end the game. Let's go ahead and end this encounter, drop this spell immediately. And the fact that 30 fireballs are dropping, you have a really good chance of killing somebody outright. And also with this spell, there is a drawback where it could affect your party, but I see it more so hitting the AI than your party, so I would put this in the S tier as well. And that's all of the spells for the Pyrokinetic Mage. What I'm going to do now is showcase what spells I would use for a standard build. It's going to have 6 Novice, 4 Adept, and 2 Master spells. So let me go ahead and reset this right quick and go ahead into the actual build. So Novice, we're going to go Flare, Burning Touch. You get 6 of them. Let's go ahead. This one. Firefly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't really see myself using this typically ever. 6. So yeah, Flare, Burning Touch, Burn My Eyes, Firefly, Self-Immolation, and Wildfire. So there's your 6 Novice spells. Going into Adept, definitely would take Fireball always. I would take Purifying Fire. It is nice to remove all of those effects. I would probably take. I don't see Explode being super useful for a generic build. I would take Summon Fire Elemental and the Fire Absorption Shield. And then for the Master spells, I would take basically the Chain Fireball Burning and then Meteor Shower. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. So this would be your ideal composition for a Pyrokinetic Mage to be able to handle majority of the situations. These specific spells have their uses with just unique parties in general. So your main goal with a Pyrokinetic Mage is just to deal a ton of damage as much as possible. Just you're the damage dealer. Go ahead, destroy, 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 set a flame, right? That is going to be the conclusion of this specific video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you can leave a like, if you can subscribe to the channel to see more of this, I would greatly appreciate it. Also, if you can go to kick.com and go to at Four Corner Society, I stream there at least once a week. Would love to see you guys there as well. Chat with me. I'll be streaming the games that I'm typically making content around. Go ahead and leave a follow there. And I hope you guys have a fantastic Saturday. And I will see you guys on the next video. Peace.